My son changed the locks while I was at church. Not because of a fire, not because of a break-in, because I wasn't living there anymore. I found out when my key wouldn't turn, just clicked. Dead. My Sunday shoes were still on. The pie I baked was warm in my hands. A neighbor leaned over her porch rail and said, "Oh, I thought you moved." That's how I learned my own house no longer belonged to me. My name was still on the mailbox, my rose bushes were still alive, but my son's voice came through the door instead of his face. "Mom, this isn't the time," he said. Calm. Practiced. "Go stay somewhere else for a few days." Somewhere else. Like I was a package left on the wrong porch. I stood there longer than I should have, not knocking, not crying, just listening to the quiet. Because the truth hit slower than the lock. This wasn't a mistake. This was planned. And if my own child could erase me that easily, what else had he already taken without telling me? I slept on my sister's couch that night. She gave me her blanket and didn't ask questions. The next morning, I went back to the house. Not to go in, just to sit across the street. I watched a woman I didn't recognize open my kitchen window. She wiped the sill like she belonged there. My curtains were gone by afternoon. Then the porch swing. I called my son once, straight to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. At the pharmacy, my card declined. The clerk whispered, "It happens sometimes." At the bank, the teller frowned at her screen and said, "Your account access was changed last week." Last week. I nodded like I understood computers, like I understood sons. I stopped correcting people when they called him such a good man. I stopped explaining why I wasn't at holidays anymore. I folded smaller, took up less space, ate toast for dinner, sat quiet in rooms that weren't mine. But at night, when the house was asleep, I kept thinking about one thing. If he could lock me out, what story was he telling everyone else about why I deserved it? The humiliation didn't come quietly. It came with coffee and folding chairs. My son called a family meeting at my own dining table. I wasn't invited, but I showed up anyway. I stood in the doorway while he spoke like a landlord, said I was confused, that I'd been forgetting things, that he was handling my affairs now. No one looked at me. They looked at him. Then he slid papers across the table, bank printouts, a typed timeline, a neat little story where I was a problem. When I spoke, he smiled. That hurt more than yelling. "See," he said to the room, "she doesn't even remember signing." I hadn't signed anything, but that didn't matter anymore, because once a mother becomes a question mark, everyone else stops listening. I walked out before anyone could tell me to sit down, and in the parking lot I realized something terrifying. He wasn't just taking my house, he was taking my voice, unless I decided right then to stop letting him. That night I found an old photo box, receipts taped to birthday cards, school pictures with my handwriting on the back. I remembered skipping meals so he could play baseball, driving overnight so he wouldn't miss tournaments, signing my name so he could have his first apartment. I didn't raise him to hurt me, but I did raise him to believe I'd always forgive, and that was the problem. I sat on the floor and asked myself the hardest question of my life. Do I want peace, or do I want dignity? Because I couldn't have both anymore. I cried once, just once. Then I wiped my face and stood up. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to shame him. I wanted my name back, my choices back, my life back, and I knew exactly where to start, not with a fight, with paper. I went to a legal clinic for seniors. I didn't accuse, I asked questions. Then I went to the bank, with documents older than his lies. Then I filed something small, quiet, official. I stopped calling him, stopped explaining myself to relatives. 3 weeks later, a letter arrived, not at my sister's place, at the house, addressed to me. He called that night. His voice wasn't calm anymore. "Mom, what did you do?" I let the silence stretch. Then I said, I told the truth. Turns out you can't sell what isn't yours. You can't move money that was never gifted. And you definitely can't decide someone's mind for themselves. Not legally, not anymore. The locks were changed back the next day, but the balance of power had already shifted, and he knew it. I didn't yell when I walked back in. I touched the wall, the light switch, the place where my life still fit. My son didn't come over for a while. When he didn't snip much. He looked smaller, not weak, just exposed. I didn't punish him. I protected myself. That was the justice. Because the strongest moment of my life wasn't when I won. It was when I stopped begging to be treated like a human being. If you're listening to this and something feels familiar, if someone is speaking for you without permission, if love is being used as a leash, ask yourself this: at what point does silence stop being kind? And what would happen if you chose dignity just once?